used to be a people pleaser and now I'm not. So in this video, I want to give you my own personal example, how I worked with my own astrology to stop being a people pleaser. In the previous video, which I will link below as well, I talked generally about where in your chart lies people pleasing. Where does it live? Where people pleasing takes roots most deeply and likely in your chart. So just to recap, that's your 7th house, your Chiron, your Venus, and your Libra Aries axis. And I was speaking how you can have all of it in one area, or you can have it scattered. I'm kind of halfway in between that setup, and which I'll go into in a moment. But I just want to, before anything, I just want to say how this is going to be useful to you, how to make most of this. I will be obviously speaking of my own chart. So if you're rising Taurus and you have, well, you'll see, then you might actually relate to this, as in it might be relevant to you as well, more than someone else. But even if we are not similar in terms of our astrology, what you're going to be learning, and this is something I always loved, this is what I always wanted from any astrologer I ever worked with, and not many I did work with, but it's like I'm interested in how are they concluding what they're concluding? How are they arriving at these delineations and explanations and descriptions and interpretations? I want to know how and why they're connecting the dots the way they're connecting them. So I will be showing you that, because I'll be walking through my chart, using my life example, but also showing how that chart and how I walked it and how it signposted me to go in certain areas. So you learn the technique as well. At least you learn my technique, and it will help you refine your own. So that's ultimately, even if this is unrelatable in terms of your chart and your personal experience. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my 7th house and first, and then in the other video I'll talk about my other area. So for me, I have 7th house, like everyone else has, and then I have in the Aries Libra axis with Chiron and Venus on my Aries end of the axis conjunct. So it's almost like that's what I mean. There will be only 2 videos because I only need to work with 2 areas of my chart. Today is the 7th house I'm going to be talking about. So I have the 7th house is the area where we most likely, in fact, if you're young, like in your pre-20s, and you are not like this, then I would love to hear from you, because I certainly was. In my 7th house, it was everything I rejected about myself up until my 40s. And I mean, in my 40s is when I first time like properly, fully dedicated myself to shadow work, and I was skilled at that point because I did all kinds of therapy, but this was like an intentional shadow work, and obviously using astrology, where before I was not as skilled at it. And so up until that point, my 7th house was representative of, or rather, my 7th house was manifesting in my life as people who were, sorry, I didn't say what my 7th house was. It's Scorpio and Neptune. So I have Neptune in 7th house in Scorpio. So Scorpio archetype and Neptune archetype were manifesting in my life. So for instance, like I was always an art lover. And since I was little, my dad took me to, it's like since I can remember, I was in galleries, and I adore art. And I was surrounded by artists. Most of my life I had loads of artist friends, like whether they're literary artists or writers or creatives of any shape or form. So Neptunian, right? Which is where the imagination and the creativity lives. But visual artists is more than anything for me. Oh, and musicians. Sorry, I had a lot of musicians. But I never dared to call myself an artist, even though I dabbled in various mediums, really all of it a little bit, right? Mostly like it was, my thing was ultimately visual, doodling, drawing and painting and writing, and writing. But because of writing all other kinds of ways, not just kind of creative writing, that's why I sort of stopped for a moment. But like I said, I struggled to call myself that. And so it's like, oh, no, I'm not an artist. I'm not creative. Others are. Neptune in 7th, right? so that's another layer to that. So I just that part of us, seventh house, takes a while to come to us because it is furthest away from us being the first house. Like us is the whole chart, but first house is our most direct experience of us. So that was that was one narrative. The other narrative was, and this is like, my mother is Venus in Pisces and Moon in Pisces. She's rising Scorpio. Then everyone in my family has some serious Pisces stuff. Moon or Venus, basically, and so yeah, so the other narrative of that Neptune Pisces archetype, they're not exactly the same, but they're close and similar enough that I use them interchangeably in these videos, not if we were working together. So the other narrative was about the elusiveness, the deception and deceitfulness of Neptune and Pisces. Now, and also flakiness. So I always felt I had a real thing like, oh, if I knew that you had Moon in Pisces, I was like, it's a mother story. I mean, obviously there is that. Just check your mum's placements, and I wonder what your attitude towards those, unless you're one of the rare lucky ones that you really have a healthy relationship with your mother. I mean, again, let me know in the comments. I would love to know what that looks like and feels like. But yeah, otherwise, like, we tend to, it's like our first kind of conflicting and troublesome and relationship. So I had to, like, if I heard that you knew you had Moon in Pisces, I would be immediately prejudiced, like, oh my God, I cannot trust you. And it's like the manipulation. Now this is not, this is what Pisces does and can do, because it's, yeah, I'll have a, I don't know whether it will already be published or not, but there will be a video, or there is a video, Pisces Virgo axis, where I talk about those two archetypes. It's how it is. It's like that area of our chart, rather the archetype, I should say, sorry, not area of our chart. So the archetype of Pisces, Neptune, and 12th house is beyond what we can comprehend. So deception is not really even malicious, although it can be easily. And in my Scorpio thing, it was certainly coming to me as malicious. So this is all shadow, shadow stuff of all these archetypes, Pisces and Scorpio. Which every archetype, every sign, every planet has, as well as the light and the evolved side. And so I was, my experience of Pisces archetype and Neptune archetype was that it was deceitful, that it was flaky, that it was manipulative, but there was a sense of like that I was also like, my problem with it was that I couldn't control it. That it was, I still kind of have a sense, like a whiff, like a residue of that sensation of like, invasion. And so both are water, so Neptune and Scorpio are water, and water seeps into you. It's like and so that it's not easy to control, and I always felt like that. It's like, oh, you're coming up, where are you, it's like I can't see you. Just like, I don't know, it was always that sense of and also like Scorpio, like you can't see, it's cloak and dagger is another shadowy expression of, or even not maybe shadowy. I'm not going to even qualify it. Just going to maybe just make this video longer than it needs to be. So cloak and dagger, like, secretiveness. So all of that, I was just infused in it everywhere I went with other people. That was happening, and like I said, mostly my family. But then and that's my point. It's like this is given to me to be facing, to be interacting with, to be engaging with, so that I can work through, so that I can assimilate, so that I can integrate those parts of me. Because what I eventually, as I grew older, realized that actually I love those qualities. I actually envy them. It's like, I remember with this flaky, deceitful, mysterious aspect of Pisces, I was like, I could see beauty. I didn't want to admit it, because then I would have to be okay with it, and I wasn't okay with it, and I didn't want to be okay with it, with their kind of slippery ways. But I equally remember feeling like they're just mesmerizing. They're beautiful. These experiences of me feeling like that's beauty. There is, it is, and again, mesmerizing beauty. It's also of the archetype, but also kind of drug-like. Like I did feel like drunk on the energy, and that's what I didn't like. Like I didn't like that, to be so whipped up in that that Neptunian water, right? In that Neptunian realm, and because you lose control. And but that's the point. With Neptune, you lose control. There's no control. You cannot. It's foolish to try to control. And yet, in my case, it's in Scorpio. So you see my dilemma, or rather my conflict there. It's like Scorpio is control, needs control, wants control, does know how to do control well. So I couldn't, and yet, so that was frustrating. But like I say, eventually started to see the beauty in it and admit that I actually loved it. And as I did that, I started to exhibit those qualities myself. Also parallel around the same time, or however, that progression worked. It's like I started to call myself an artist. In fact, there was a whole chapter in my life where I solely and so intensely dedicated myself to being one, to practicing being one. And then as for the other Scorpio elements of like power, so like giving power to others. I remember having many friends. Well, some friends, some were actually Scorpio, some had either my best friend has a moon in Scorpio. I mean, like, it's just like, that's just what it is, and I adore her. But that was actually, she arrived after I was already integrating the archetype far more than prior. But prior, like in the earlier days, I remember like whenever someone wasn't people pleasing me, so big thing for me was smiles. So it's like when you smile at me, that's a cue. That's how I know that you are looking after me, that you're making sure that I'm comfortable, that I'm happy. You're making me feel welcome, right? And so whenever someone, and Scorpio is the least smiley of the signs. I mean, absolutely. And that's so. So that would be taken even further in a way of like I would just agree with them. What I remember clearly, like it was yesterday, and we're talking early teens onwards. I kept telling myself, I don't want to be like them, these Scorpio archetypes in my life, exhibiting Scorpio qualities. They were not just Scorpio, but the ones that bothered me the most were the Scorpio archetype in them, right? So they were not necessarily Scorpio, you get what I mean? And that quality was like that they just didn't want to make an effort to make me feel good. They didn't want to meet me. They were just like, they were not smiley. They were just like, matter of factual. Oh, that's one expression of them. The other was like, they were very happy to be disliked and disapproved by me. So I couldn't guilt trip them. I mean, can you just hear all this, like all the game playing? I mean, it's ridiculous. And yet it's like part of growing up and maturing. So eventually I found myself in this space of life where I was working in fashion, and it was like just women. And so funnily, a lot of them were Scorpio and moon in Pisces. It was just like, you can't write it like it's like the best drama, the best sitcom or whatever. And I found myself looking at some photos of mine, and while I was working there, like meaning that at the same time, not while I was on my job. And saw a photo of me where I looked no smiley, like I was like, don't mess with me. That wasn't what I was, but it was just, I was caught on camera like that. And I was actually already becoming actively people displeasing. But I'll talk about that in the next video. And I saw that photo and I was like, wow, I look like the very women that I would dread in my life years ago. Like I remember going for an interview for a job, and there was the woman interviewed me and she didn't smile. And when I got back home telling my husband about it, well, the first thing that I said that I didn't like about her is that she didn't smile. And he went, well, why do you care about smiling so much? Like, so she may just like, it just doesn't mean anything personal to you. I'm like, well, it does, right? Because she didn't make an effort to make him feel, that's like, she hasn't, the fact that she didn't make an effort means that it's about me, because when you have someone in front of you, you don't want to make an effort. It's like you choose not to see them or not to care for them. That was my way of thinking. I mean, just like talking about it, that makes me just, and so like in this photo, I was like that, like just straight face, like just not caring, like looked like I just didn't care. And I wasn't caring whether anyone's going to like me or not. And I was like, wow, I became my nemesis. And it was like, wow, I love it, love it, love it. And all these other women, and then I just stopped and I thought, wow, this is like someone just handed me a graduation piece of like, you graduated in people displeasing. And then I looked and surveyed my life, and I realized all these other women that I actually fell out with. We had conflicts, and we kind of patched them up and made okay again for the however many years I was there, 3 years I think. And like I said, most of them were Scorpio, like the ones that I was close with, or Moon in Pisces. But my point there being is that I was for the first time navigating my way and relating to them and engaging with them in a way like a total equal. Like, I don't care that you don't like me. You don't have to like me, but you got to do this because, we are on this team together and this needs doing. And I was, like, I don't know, kind of like not project managing, but just managing them, or acting as a manager, or acting at least as an equal, because we were really all equal, not managers. But that was the company policy, was like that. You can just, your colleague is there. If you need them to do something for you, whatever you tell them, it's not considered inappropriate or out of rank or something. And so yeah, I was so steeped in this, like, you don't have to like me, but if we're working together, you got to do this, and I'm going to tell you that. And even if it's going to create friction and fallout, I'm going to tell you. And I did, and it was amazing. So I had a major coughing fit. Not amazing in the sense of like, oh, I did something that I couldn't do before. No, it was amazing that it felt deeply empowering. I felt utterly like I belonged to myself, like I wasn't rattled by anyone, giving me the stern kind of evil eye or something, like whatever, right? I was just like dealing with a pro, like a life pro, not like professional at work. That too, but yeah, and the fact that we would just go our separate ways, and I wouldn't at all lose sleep over it, which in the past I would have. And then eventually, however long it took for things to kind of settle, we'd just go back to being normal as if nothing happened, best friends. And it's like, oh my God, this is what grown-ups do. And it's like, because I integrated my seventh house. So that's how you become a displeaser, or rather how you stop being a pleaser. You people pleaser. You just, all these things that you don't like about the person, so you then try to manipulate him, which is also people pleasing, is essentially manipulation. You then become it. Like you don't have the need to please anymore, because you are that person that you're trying to please. So you bring it back to yourself, and you embody those qualities of the people who you're trying to please, or you wish they pleased you, right? And then that's it. You just even the playing field, and it's just wonderful. So, and in the next video, or another video, there will be the axis on Libra, Aries, and Venus Chiron axis for me, if you're interested in that, how I integrated that and how that taught me about people displeasing and to stop being a pleaser.